The fog clung to Mill Creek, Oregon like a shroud on the morning of Ava and Ethan Harper's funeral. The small town, cradled by rolling hills and a dense pine forest, felt suffocated under a gray sky. The cemetery, perched on a low rise just beyond the town's edge, was a patchwork of weathered headstones and fresh grief. 2 white coffins rested side by side on a platform, surrounded by mourners dressed in black, their faces heavy with sorrow and disbelief. Ava and Ethan, 16-year-old twins, had died on the same day, less than 24 hours apart, under circumstances no one could fully explain. The town called it a tragedy. Whispers in the diner and the gas station hinted at something darker. Claire Harper stood at the edge of the crowd, her fingers digging into her husband Tom's arm. Her eyes, red from nights without sleep, fixed on the coffins. Ava, her bold, curious daughter who devoured folklore and led adventures into the forest, was gone. Ethan, her quiet, gentle son who sketched his dreams in intricate pencil lines, was gone too. The weight of their absence pressed against Claire's chest, making each breath a struggle. Tom, a park ranger with a face weathered by years in the elements, stood rigid beside her, his jaw clenched. He hadn't spoken much since the twins died, as if words might crack the fragile shell holding him together. Father Michael, the town's aging priest, stepped forward, his black robes blending into the somber crowd. His voice, soft but steady, carried over the rustle of pine needles in the wind. "We gather today to honor Ava and Ethan Harper, 2 souls taken too soon, whose light touched us all." His words drifted, blending with the low hum of grief. Claire's sister Rachel stood nearby, holding her 7-year-old daughter Lily, who clung to her mother's skirt. Lily's wide blue eyes darted between the coffins, her small face pale. The town had turned out in force, neighbors, teachers, classmates, all grappling with the loss. Doctors had labeled Ethan's death a rare seizure, Ava's a shock-induced heart failure. But the explanations felt like half-truths, pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit. Claire's mind replayed the last week endlessly, Ethan collapsing in his room, clutching his chest, his eyes wide with fear. Ava, found the next morning, lifeless in her bed, no wounds, no illness, just gone. The paramedics, the hospital, the coroner's reports. It all blurred into a nightmare she couldn't wake from. She glanced at Tom, hoping for a shared glance, a moment of connection, but his eyes were fixed on the ground, distant and unreadable. As Father Michael spoke of eternal rest, a sharp scream sliced through the silence. Lily, trembling, pointed at Ethan's coffin. "He moved. I saw his hand." Her voice, high and piercing, froze the crowd. Heads turned, breaths caught. Claire's heart lurched, a wild, impossible hope clawing through her grief. Tom's grip on her arm tightened, his knuckles white. "Lily, honey, shh," Rachel whispered, pulling her daughter close, but Lily shook her head, her blonde curls bouncing. "No, Mommy, I saw it. Ethan's moving." Her small finger jabbed toward the coffin, unwavering. The mourners stirred, murmurs rippling like wind through the pines. Father Michael raised a hand, his face calm but strained. "Please, let's remain respectful." His words were cut off by a sound, faint but unmistakable, a soft thump from inside Ethan's coffin. The crowd gasped. A woman in the back dropped her phone, the clatter loud in the stunned silence. Claire's legs buckled, and Tom caught her, his own face drained of color. "Ethan?" Claire whispered, her voice barely audible. She took a step, toward the coffin, her hands trembling. Tom followed, his boots crunching on the gravel path. The crowd parted, some stepping back in fear, others leaning forward, eyes wide with curiosity and dread. Another thump came, louder, like a fist against wood. A scream erupted from someone in the back. Chaos broke out, people shouting, some running toward the cemetery gate, others frozen, staring at the coffin. Claire reached the coffin first, her hands fumbling over its smooth white surface. "Ethan, baby, are you there?" Her voice cracked, raw with desperation. Tom grabbed her shoulders, his voice low and urgent. "Claire, stop, it's not possible." But his eyes betrayed him, darting to the coffin, searching for answers. Father Michael stepped forward, his hands raised. "Everyone, please calm down. It could be air-trapped inside, a natural occurrence." His explanation sounded weak, even to himself. The knocks continued, rhythmic now, like a heartbeat trapped in wood. Claire pounded on the coffin, tears streaming down her face. "Open it! We have to open it!" Two cemetery workers, hesitant but compelled by the crowd's panic, stepped forward with tools. The lid creaked open, the hinges groaning under the weight. The crowd held its breath as the interior was revealed. Ethan, pale and still, his hands folded neatly across his chest. No movement, no breath. His face was serene, almost peaceful, but unmistakably lifeless. Claire's sob broke the silence, a sound of raw anguish. The crowd exhaled collectively, some with relief, others with disappointment. "I heard it," Claire whispered, collapsing against Tom. "I know I did." Her hands gripped the edge of the coffin, unwilling to let go. Lily, still clutching Rachel's hand, stared at the coffin, her small face defiant. "He moved," she insisted, her voice shaking but certain. "I saw him." Rachel knelt beside her, brushing a curl from her face. "Sweetie, it's okay. You're just sad." But Lily shook her head, her eyes locked on the coffin. "He's not gone, Mommy. He's still here." Father Michael cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "Let us continue. This is a time for peace, for remembering Ava and Ethan." But the crowd was restless, whispering, glancing at the coffins. The knocks had stopped, but the air felt charged, as if something lingered just out of sight. Claire and Tom returned, to their place, her body trembling, his arms steady around her. The rest of the service blurred. Prayers, hymns, words of comfort that felt empty. As the mourners dispersed, Claire lingered, staring at the coffins. She couldn't shake Lily's words or the sound of those knocks. They echoed in her mind, a rhythm that refused to fade. That night, the Harper house was a tomb of its own. The cozy two-story home, a mile from the pine forest, felt too large, too empty without the twins' laughter. Claire sat on the living room couch, staring at a framed photo from their 10th birthday. Ava and Ethan grinning, faces smeared with frosting, blowing out candles together. Tom sat across from her, his hands clasped, staring at the floor. Rachel had taken Lily home, but the little girl's scream, "He moved," echoed in Claire's mind. The house creaked, a normal sound in an old home, but each noise made Claire flinch. She hadn't slept in days, not since Ethan collapsed in his room, gasping, his eyes wide with terror. The paramedics had arrived too late, their faces grim as they carried him away. And Ava, found the next morning, her eyes open, staring at the ceiling. No explanation, no sense. The doctor's words, seizure, shock, felt like lies. And now, after the funeral, Claire was certain something was wrong, something beyond reason. She stood, unable to sit still, and climbed the stairs, to the twins' shared bedroom. The door was ajar, though she was sure she'd closed it that morning. Inside, the room was untouched, Ava's books stacked neatly on her desk, folklore and mythology titles she loved, Ethan's sketchbooks scattered across his bed, pencils still tucked between pages. Claire picked up one of Ethan's sketchbooks, her fingers tracing the worn leather cover. She opened it, expecting familiar drawings of trees, animals, or the forest trails they explored. What she saw made her blood run cold. Page after page was filled with sketches of a tall, faceless figure with long, dragging arms and glowing eyes. The word Watcher was scrawled repeatedly, sometimes in neat print, sometimes in frantic scratches that tore the paper. One drawing showed the pine forest behind their house, the figure standing among the trees, labeled "He's Waiting." Another showed two coffins in a cemetery, the figure looming behind them captioned, "He's still here." Claire's hands shook as she flipped to the last page, drawn in black ink. The cemetery from that morning, the two coffins, and the faceless figure, its eyes glowing red. Claire dropped the sketchbook, her heart pounding. She remembered Ethan's strange behavior in the weeks before his death, whispering to someone who wasn't there, waking up at night to stare into the forest. Ava had tried to tell her something was wrong, showing her the sketchbook a month ago, but Claire, exhausted from work, had snapped, "It's just drawings, Ava. Stop scaring your brother." Now she wasn't so sure. Downstairs, Tom called her name, his voice sharp with worry. "Claire!" She hurried down, finding him in the kitchen, staring at the back door. It was wide open, the cold night air pouring in, carrying the scent of pine. "I locked it," he said, his voice low. "I know I did." Claire's eyes darted to the forest beyond the backyard, the pines swaying in the dark. Something moved in the shadows, just for a moment, a tall, thin shape that vanished when she blinked. "Tom," she whispered, grabbing his arm. "There's something out there." He shook his head, but his face was pale. "It's just the wind, Claire. We're tired. We're grieving." But his voice wavered, and his eyes lingered on the forest. They closed the door, locked it, and checked every window. Claire noticed the kitchen clock had stopped at 3:03 a.m., the exact time Ethan had died. She didn't mention it to Tom. That night, Claire lay awake, listening to the house, waiting for another knock, another sign. The forest outside was silent, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching, waiting, just beyond the trees. She clutched Ethan's sketchbook, the word "watcher" burning in her mind. Whatever had taken her children wasn't finished, and the knocks at the funeral were only the beginning. The days after Ava and Ethan Harper's funeral were a haze of grief and unease, each moment heavy with the echo of those impossible knocks from Ethan's coffin. Claire Harper sat at the kitchen table in their Mill Creek home, the silence of the house pressing against her like a physical weight. The cozy two-story, once filled with the twins' laughter and the clatter of their shared adventures, now felt like a hollow shell. Outside, the pine forest loomed, its dark silhouette visible through the window, swaying in the autumn wind. Claire's hands trembled as she clutched Ethan's sketchbook, its pages open to the chilling drawing of the cemetery. 2 coffins, a faceless figure with glowing eyes, and the words, "He's still here." Tom, her husband, paced the living room, his boots scuffing the hardwood floor. His face, weathered from years as a park ranger, was drawn, his eyes bloodshot. He hadn't slept either, not since the funeral, not since the back door swung open on its own, revealing that fleeting glimpse of a tall, thin shape in the forest. "We need to leave, Claire," he said, his voice rough but low, as if afraid to wake something. "This house, it's not right anymore." Claire didn't answer. She couldn't. Her mind was tangled in memories of Ava and Ethan, the twins who'd been her world. Born 5 minutes apart, they were inseparable, 2 halves of a whole. Ava, bold and curious, always with a book of folklore or a plan to explore the pines. Ethan, quiet and sensitive, sketching the world through his pencil, always trailing in her wake. They'd shared everything. Same classes at Mill Creek High, same love for blueberry pancakes, same habit of finishing each other's sentences. From the outside, their life looked perfect. A happy family in a small Oregon town, Claire a librarian, Tom a ranger, the twins always smiling. But behind closed doors, something had shifted in the months before their deaths. Something Claire hadn't seen until it was too late. It started in the spring, when Ethan began acting strange. He'd always been quiet, but now he was distant, whispering to someone in the dark of his room. Claire would find him at his window, staring into the forest, his breath fogging the glass. "Who are you talking to, honey?" she'd ask, and he'd smile, soft and secretive. "Just the wind, Mom." But his eyes held something else. Fear, or maybe recognition. Ava noticed first. She'd always been the protector, the older twin by those 5 minutes, fierce and unafraid. "He's seeing things, Mom," she'd said one evening, her voice low as they sat at the dinner table. "He talks to someone who's not there." Claire, exhausted from a long day at the library, had brushed it off. "He's just imagining things, Ava. You know how creative he is." But Ava's frown deepened, and she showed Claire Ethan's sketchbook, hidden under his bed. The pages were filled with drawings of a tall, faceless figure, with long, dragging arms and eyes like burning coals. The word watcher was scrawled everywhere, in neat print, in frantic scratches, sometimes so hard it tore the paper. One sketch showed the pine forest, the figure standing among the trees, labeled, "He's waiting." Another showed Ethan himself, eyes black, standing in a clearing Claire didn't recognize. "It's not just drawings," Ava had insisted, her voice trembling. "He's scared, Mom. He says the Watcher's coming for him." Claire, stressed and overworked, had snapped. "They're just stories, Ava. Stop scaring your brother. He's fine." But Ethan wasn't fine. The sketches grew darker, the whispers louder. Claire took him to a therapist who called it stress from school, maybe anxiety. A doctor prescribed pills, but Ethan refused them, whispering, "He doesn't like medicine." When Claire asked who he was, Ethan just smiled and said, "You'll see him soon." Tom, when he was home from patrolling the national forest, dismissed it as teenage nonsense. "They're looking for attention," he'd said, his voice gruff. "Let them be." But Ava didn't want attention. She wanted answers. She stopped going out with friends, stopped playing soccer, her focus entirely on Ethan. She'd sit with him at night, reading his sketches, trying to understand. One night, Claire overheard them in their room, Ava's voice sharp. "Who's the Watcher, Ethan? Tell me." Ethan's reply was soft, almost dreamy. "He's in the pines, Ava. He's always been there." The strange occurrences began soon. After. Lights flickered, even with new bulbs. Cold air seeped through closed windows, chilling the house despite the summer heat. Whispers echoed from the vents, too faint to make out but constant, like a conversation just out of reach. One night, Claire woke to find Ethan standing over her bed, his eyes wide and unblinking, his face pale in the moonlight. "He's almost here," he whispered. She shook him, panic rising, but he collapsed, limp, and didn't remember it the poem. Next morning, Ava became frantic, shadowing Ethan everywhere. She started researching, sneaking into the library after hours to use Claire's access to old records. She found a 1987 article about a boy named Jacob Miller, who'd lived in their neighborhood and vanished after telling his parents about a man in the pines. His last words, scrawled in a note, were, "He's waiting for me." No trace of Jacob was ever found, and the case was closed, labeled a runaway. Ava showed Claire the article, her hands shaking. "This is what's after Ethan," she said. Claire, overwhelmed, told her to stop, to focus on school, to let it go. But Ava couldn't. She felt watched too, especially near the forest, as if eyes followed her from the trees. The night everything changed was 2 days before the funeral. Claire woke to Ava's screams echoing through the house. She rushed to Ethan's room and found him on the floor, clutching his chest, his skin pale, his lips blue. "He's here," he gasped, his eyes wide with terror. Claire screamed for Tom, who called 911, but by the time the paramedics arrived, Ethan was gone. The doctors called it a rare seizure, sudden and unexplained. Ava, sobbing, clung to Claire. "It wasn't a seizure, Mom. It was him." The next morning, Claire went to wake Ava for breakfast. She found her daughter lifeless on her bed, her eyes open, staring at the ceiling. No wounds, no illness, just gone. The doctors said shock, a heart broken by grief. But Claire didn't believe it, not for a second. The town reeled, the death's headline news in the Mill Creek Gazette. Behind closed doors, old-timers whispered of curses, of something old and hungry in the forest. The funeral was planned, 2 coffins for one goodbye, but the knocks at the cemetery shattered any hope of closure. Now, in the days after the funeral, the house felt alive with menace. Claire couldn't sleep, haunted by Lily's scream, the knocks, and Ethan's sketchbook. She kept it under her pillow, flipping through it each night, searching for clues. The drawings were a map of Ethan's fear, but also a warning. She remembered Ava's words, "He's seeing something." Why hadn't she listened? On the 3rd night after the funeral, Rachel brought Lily over to stay, hoping to comfort Claire. The little girl was quiet, clutching a stuffed rabbit, her eyes darting to the windows. Claire tried to smile, offering her a plate of cookies, but Lily just stared at the forest. "They're out there," she whispered. Claire's heart skipped. Who, honey? Lily didn't answer, just hugged her rabbit tighter. That evening, Claire sat in the twins' room, the sketchbook open on her lap. The air was cold, though the heater hummed. She flipped to a new page, one she hadn't seen before, and her breath caught. It showed the Harper house, the back door open, the faceless figure standing in the yard, its eyes glowing red. The caption read, "He's closer now." Claire's hands shook. She was certain she'd locked the sketchbook in a box, in the basement, after the funeral. How was it here, with a new drawing? She called for Tom, who was in the garage organizing tools to distract himself. He climbed the stairs, his face pale when he saw the drawing. "Maybe you brought it up," he said, but his voice was unsteady. "I didn't," Claire said, her voice firm. "This wasn't here yesterday." They checked the basement, finding the box undisturbed, the lock intact. Claire's stomach twisted. She remembered the open back door, the shadow in the forest. "Something's in this house," she whispered. Tom shook his head, but his hands were clenched. "We're imagining it, Claire. Grief does that." But he didn't meet her eyes. That night, Lily woke screaming. Claire rushed to the guest room, finding the girl curled in a ball, her eyes wide. "He's under my bed," she cried. Claire checked, her flashlight sweeping the empty space. Nothing. But Lily's fear was real, her small body trembling. "Ava told me in my dream," she whispered. "She said don't go near the pines. He's waiting there." Claire's heart pounded. She tucked Lily back in, singing a lullaby Ava used to love, but her mind raced. She remembered Ava's research, the article about Jacob Miller. The next morning, while Tom took Lily to Rachel's, Claire drove to the town library, her workplace, and pulled every record from 1987. The article was there, yellowed and brittle, detailing Jacob's disappearance. His grandmother, Margaret Hale, had claimed a legend was to blame, something called the Watcher in the Pines. The town had dismissed her as eccentric, but Claire found her address in an old directory. Margaret still lived on the edge of Mill Creek, in a house half swallowed by ivy. Claire drove there that afternoon, her hands gripping the steering wheel. Margaret, nearly 90, answered the door, her eyes sharp despite her frail frame. Her living room was cluttered with books and old photos, a shrine to a lost era. When Claire mentioned Ava and Ethan, Margaret's face darkened. "I told them 30 years ago it would happen again," she said, her voice low. "They laughed, called me crazy, but he comes every 30 years, always for twins." Claire leaned forward, her heart racing. "Who is he?" Margaret's eyes met hers, unblinking. "He's not human. He feeds on fear on twins. He watches them from birth, waits until one breaks, then takes them both. Once you see him, he's inside, dreams, whispers, drawings. Then the forest calls." Claire's voice trembled. "You're saying my kids were watched their whole lives?" Margaret nodded slowly. "Once he chooses, there's no escape, unless one twin fights back. Their bond is the only thing he fears." Claire drove home, her mind a storm of fear and guilt. She hadn't protected her children, hadn't listened when they needed her. Now Lily was seeing things, drawing the same figure Ethan had. That evening, she found Lily at the kitchen table, humming Ava's lullaby, her crayons moving furiously. The drawing showed Ethan standing in the forest, holding hands with the faceless figure, its eyes red. "Where did you see this?" Claire asked, her voice shaking. Lily shrugged, her eyes distant. "He showed me in my dream. He said the Watcher likes the pines. It's quiet there." Tom, back from dropping Lily off, tried to laugh it off. "She's just a kid, Claire. She misses them." But his voice was hollow. Claire showed him the drawing, and his face paled. "We're leaving," he said. "Tomorrow. I don't care what it costs." They started packing, throwing clothes into bags, but a loud crash came from the garage. Claire ran out, finding Tom on the floor, a deep cut across his forehead, blood dripping onto the concrete. "Something hit me," he gasped. "It said my name." Claire helped him inside, her hands shaking, They sat on the couch, Tom's face bandaged, when the front door creaked open on its own. A cold gust swept through, carrying the scent of pine. At the end of the hallway, for just a second, they saw it, tall, thin, faceless, with glowing red eyes. Then it was gone, leaving only silence and the pounding of their hearts. The Harper house was a fortress of locked doors and drawn curtains, but it couldn't keep out the chill that had settled over Claire's heart. The night after the terrifying glimpse of the watcher in their hallway, Claire sat in the twins' bedroom, Ethan's sketchbook open on her lap. The air was heavy, the room unnaturally cold despite the humming heater. The memory of the faceless figure, tall, thin with glowing red eyes, lingered like a stain. Tom, nursing the cut on his forehead from the garage incident, had barely spoken since the police left. Officer Jennings' words echoed in Claire's mind. My cousin disappeared in these woods. He drew the same figure, the sketchbook, with its haunting drawings and the new page showing their house and the watcher, was no longer just a relic of Ethan's fears. It was a map to something real, something that had taken her children. Claire flipped through the sketchbook, her fingers trembling. The drawings were relentless. The faceless figure in the pines, the word watcher scrawled in frantic loops, the cemetery with 2 coffins. The newest drawing, found after the funeral, showed their back door open, the figure standing in the yard, captioned, "He's closer now." Claire's heart raced as she recalled Lily's drawing, mirroring Ethan's, a figure in the forest holding Ethan's hand, its eyes red. The little girl's words haunted her. He showed me in my dream. He said the watcher likes the pines. Claire knew she couldn't ignore it anymore. Whatever had taken Ava and Ethan was still here, and it was watching Lily. She closed the sketchbook and went downstairs, where Tom sat on the couch, gripping a baseball bat, his eyes fixed on the front door. We're leaving tomorrow, he said, his voice low but firm. I don't care where. This house isn't safe. Claire nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought of Ava's research, the 1987 article about Jacob Miller, the boy who vanished after speaking of a man in the pines. Margaret Hale, Jacob's grandmother, had called it the Watcher in the Pines, a legend the town dismissed as madness. Claire had visited Margaret yesterday, and her words burned in her memory. He feeds on fear on twins. He watches them from birth, waits until one breaks, then takes them both. The idea that Ava and Ethan had been targeted their entire lives made Claire's stomach churn. She hadn't protected them, hadn't listened when Ava begged her to see the truth. I'm going back to Margaret's, Claire said, grabbing her coat. Tom stood, his face tight. Claire, it's late. You're not thinking straight. But she shook her head. I need answers, Tom. For Lily. For them. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, the bandage on his forehead stark against his pale skin. Then I'm coming with you. They drove through Mill Creek's quiet streets, the fog thick and clinging to the car's headlights. Margaret's house on the town's edge was a sagging relic, ivy crawling up its walls like veins. The old woman answered the door, her sharp eyes narrowing as she saw Claire's desperation. You've seen him, haven't you? Margaret said, ushering them inside. The living room smelled of dust and old paper, shelves overflowing with books and faded photos. A picture of a young boy, Jacob, Claire assumed, sat on the mantel, his eyes eerily similar to Ethan's. Claire sat, clutching the sketchbook. He was in our house last night. I saw him. And Lily, she's drawing him, just like Ethan did. Margaret's face darkened. He's chosen her now, she said. Because the twins are gone, he needs another. He's hungry. Tom shifted. Uncomfortable. This is crazy talk. There's no monster in the woods. But Margaret's gaze pinned him. You saw him, didn't you? Don't lie to yourself, Ranger. You know the pines aren't just trees. Claire leaned forward, her voice trembling. You said the twins' bond could stop him, but they're gone. How do I protect Lily? Margaret's hands shook as she poured tea, her voice low. The Watcher's old, older than this town. Every 30 years he wakes, always for twins. He gets inside their heads, dreams, whispers, drawings, until one breaks. Then he takes them both to the gate in the forest. It's a door, not to this world, If you want to stop him, you have to face him there. But it's dangerous. He'll ask for a choice. A choice? Claire asked, her heart pounding. Margaret nodded. He thrives on pain, on breaking families. He'll want Lily, but he'll offer you something. Maybe your twins back. Don't trust it. The only way to stop him is to break his cycle, but it costs everything. Tom slammed his hand on the table. Enough. We're not chasing ghost stories. We're leaving town. Margaret's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. You can run, but he'll follow. He's already inside. They drove home in silence, Tom's hands tight on the wheel, Claire clutching the sketchbook. The house was dark when they arrived, the air heavy. Lily was staying with Rachel, but Claire felt her absence like a wound. She checked the twins' room, hoping for answers, and found the sketchbook open on Ethan's bed, though she'd left it downstairs. A new page stared up at her, drawn in black ink. 2 twisted pine trees, their trunks entwined like clasped hands, fog swirling at their base. Below it, in Ethan's handwriting, were the words, "Midnight. The gate. Bring her." Claire's breath caught. She showed Tom, who stared, his skepticism cracking. "This wasn't here this morning," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Claire's mind raced. The gate, Margaret's words echoed. He takes them to the gate in the forest. She knew where it was. The twins had loved a clearing in the pines, a place they'd played as children, where 2 massive trees stood twisted together. They'd called it their secret fort. Claire had thought it was just a game, but now she saw it for what it was, a doorway. "We have to go," Claire said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her. Tom grabbed her arm. "Claire, this is insane. You're not going into the forest at midnight to chase a drawing." But she pulled away. "I lost Ava and Ethan because I didn't listen. I won't lose Lily, too." Tom's face softened, his eyes wet. "Then I'm coming with you." Claire shook her head. "Stay with Lily. Keep her safe. I have to do this alone." Tom protested, but Claire was resolute. She called Rachel, ensuring Lily was safe, then sat by the window watching the forest. The pines swayed, their shadows stretching toward the house. At 11:30 p.m. she put on her coat, kissed a sleeping Lily's forehead on a photo by the couch and whispered, "I'll protect you." She grabbed a flashlight and Ethan's sketchbook, the drawing of the gate burning in her mind, and stepped into the backyard. The forest was dark, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. The trail was familiar, one the twins had walked countless times, but tonight it felt alive, the trees whispering secrets. Claire's flashlight flickered, its beam weak against the darkness. Her heart pounded, each step heavier than the last. She remembered Ava's voice, fierce and protective. "He's seeing something, Mom." She hadn't listened then, but she was listening now. After 20 minutes, she heard footsteps behind her. She spun, her flashlight sweeping the path, and saw Lily rubbing her eyes, her pajamas muddy. "I followed you," she said, her voice small. "Ava told me to." Claire's heart stopped. "Lily, no, you can't be here." She grabbed the girl's hand, panic rising, but Lily pointed ahead. "It's there, Mommy Claire, the gate." Claire followed her gaze, and the trees parted, revealing the clearing. 2 massive pines stood at its center, their trunks twisted, together like arms in an embrace, fog swirling at their base like smoke in a bowl. The air was cold, the silence oppressive. From the shadows stepped a figure, tall, thin, faceless, its eyes glowing red. The Watcher. Lily clutched Claire's hand, trembling. "He wants me now," she whispered, "because Ava fought back." Claire stepped in front of Lily, her voice shaking but firm. "You can't have her." The Watcher tilted its head, and a voice echoed in Claire's mind, cold and sharp. "One must stay." The fog thickened, curling around them like fingers. Claire's flashlight died, plunging them into darkness lit only by the Watcher's eyes. Then, from the mist, 2 figures emerged, Ava and Ethan, glowing faintly, their faces sad but calm. "Mom," Ava said, her voice soft like a breeze through the pines. We can't leave yet. Ethan nodded, his eyes black but his expression gentle. We can stop him, but we have to go together. Claire shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, I won't lose you again. Her voice broke. Raw with grief, Ava stepped closer, her glowing form translucent. You never lost us, Mom. We're still here, but we have to do this. Ethan took her hand, his voice steady. If we both go, it ends. The curse, the gate, all of it. He feeds on pain, on fear. If we give ourselves, he has nothing left. Claire dropped to her knees, clutching Lily, who was sobbing. I can't, she said, her voice a plea. I can't let you go. Ava knelt beside her, her hand brushing Claire's cheek, cold but comforting. You're strong, Mom. You'll keep going for Lily. Ethan looked at Lily, his smile soft. Be brave, okay? Like Ava. Lily clung to Claire, her voice small. Don't let them go, Mommy Claire. But Ava leaned in, kissing Lily's forehead. You're stronger than you think. The twins turned hand in hand and faced the gate. A trap door opened in the ground beneath the twisted pines, black and creaking, a low hum rising from within like breathing. The watcher loomed behind them, its shadow stretching, its eyes blazing. It growled, a sound that shook the forest, as if sensing its control slipping. Claire stood, pulling Lily behind her. You can't have them, she shouted. But the watcher's voice echoed again. Choose. The air grew heavier, the fog choking. Ava and Ethan stepped toward the trap door, their glow brightening. If we do this, Ethan said, it's over. No more twins, no more fear. Ava nodded. We're not afraid anymore. The watcher's growl deepened, its form trembling with rage. It wanted a choice, a sacrifice torn from pain, but the twins were denying it. As they stepped into the void, a white light erupted, warm and blinding, flooding the clearing. The watcher screamed, a high, twisting sound that cracked branches and sent animals fleeing. Its form dissolved, pulled apart like smoke in the wind, its red eyes fading into nothing. The fog cleared. The gate vanished, the twisted pines standing alone, no longer menacing. Where the trapdoor had been, the ground was solid, grass already sprouting. In its place bloomed 2 wildflowers, purple for Ava, green for Ethan. Claire fell to her knees, sobbing, holding Lily tightly. Tom stumbled into the clearing, his face bruised from a fall, his eyes wide. Claire, he called, limping toward them. He knelt beside them, his arms wrapping around them both, his eyes wet. They're gone, Claire whispered. They saved us. Tom nodded, unable to speak, his tears falling silently. The forest was quiet now, not the dead silence of fear, but a peaceful hush. They walked out slowly, Lily clutching Claire's hand, the wildflowers a beacon in the dark. The air was fresh, the sky clear, as if the world had exhaled. Claire looked back once at the clearing and whispered, Thank you. The Harper house, once a battleground of fear and shadows, stood quiet under the pale light of a November dawn. The pine forest beyond the backyard where Claire had faced the watcher just weeks ago seemed less menacing now, its trees swaying gently in the morning breeze. The twisted pines, the gate where Ava and Ethan had vanished into a blinding light, were gone, replaced by a patch of soft grass and 2 wildflowers, purple for Ava, green for Ethan. Claire stood at the kitchen window, a mug of coffee cooling in her hands, staring at the forest. The memory of that night burned in her mind, the watcher's red eyes, the trapdoor's hum, and her twins' glowing figures, hand in hand, stepping into the void to end the curse. Claire's heart ached, a constant weight, but it was different now, not just grief but gratitude. Ava and Ethan had saved them, saved Lily, by giving themselves to the darkness. Yet the house felt empty without their laughter, their footsteps, their endless bickering over who got the last pancake. Claire glanced at the photo on the counter, taken last summer. Ava grinning, her hair tangled from a day in the forest. Ethan beside her, sketching in the shade. She touched the frame, her fingers lingering on their faces, and whispered, "I miss you." Tom shuffled into the kitchen, his boots left at the door, a change from his old habit of tracking mud inside. The cut on his forehead from the garage incident had faded to a thin scar, but his eyes carried a new softness. He'd taken a leave from his park ranger job, something Claire never thought he'd do, and spent his days with her and Lily, rebuilding what grief had torn apart. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, his hand resting on her shoulder. Claire nodded, though tears welled up. "Just thinking about them." He squeezed her shoulder, his own eyes distant. "Me too." Tom had changed since that night in the forest. The man who once dismissed ghost stories now flinched at shadows, checked the locks twice, and hugged Lily longer than he used to. The Watcher's presence, brief but undeniable, had shattered his skepticism, leaving him quieter, more present. Claire was grateful for it, though she wished it hadn't taken such a loss to bring him closer. Lily was staying with them again, her small suitcase by the couch, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. Rachel, Claire's sister, had suggested it, hoping the routine of family dinners and bedtime stories would help Lily heal. The little girl had been shaken since the forest, her dreams haunted by Ava's warning, "Don't go near the pines." But she was smiling more, drawing pictures of sunlit fields and flowers, not the dark figures that had plagued her after the funeral. Claire watched her now, sitting at the kitchen table, crayons scattered, humming Ava's favorite lullaby, a soft, lilting tune that made Claire's chest tighten. Lily's latest drawing caught Claire's eye. A field of wildflowers under a bright sky, two figures standing in the distance, their outlines faint but familiar. "Who's that, honey?" Claire asked, sitting beside her. Lily smiled, her blue eyes bright. "It's Ava and Ethan. They're happy now." Claire's throat closed, but she forced a smile. "That's beautiful, Lily." The drawing was a balm, a sign that Lily was healing, but Claire couldn't shake the memory of her earlier sketches, the Watcher's red eyes, Ethan's black gaze. She wondered if the darkness was truly gone. The days since the forest had been a delicate dance of grief and hope. Claire had started journaling, a habit she'd abandoned years ago, pouring her thoughts into a notebook each night. She wrote about Ava's fierce protectiveness, Ethan's quiet strength, and her own guilt for not listening when they needed her. "I should have seen it," she wrote one night, her pen shaking. "Ava tried to tell me about the Watcher, but I was too tired, too busy. I failed them." But she also wrote about their courage, how they'd faced the Watcher together, breaking its cycle. "They saved us," she wrote. "They were heroes, my babies." Tom, too, was finding ways to cope. He'd started fixing things around the house, a creaky stair, a leaky faucet, small acts that grounded him. One evening, he suggested planting a tree for the twins, a memorial to keep them close. Claire loved the idea, and Lily clapped her hands, insisting on helping. They chose a young oak, sturdy and tall, and planted it in the backyard, a stone at its base carved with "For Ava and Ethan." Lily watered it every morning, her small watering can sloshing, and said it was her way of saying good morning to the sky. Claire watched, her heart swelling, and wondered if the twins could see them. But not everything was peaceful. Some nights Lily woke crying, her small body trembling. "He's back," she'd whisper, clutching her rabbit. Claire would hold her, singing Ava's lullaby, and say, "He's gone, honey." Ava and Ethan made sure of that. But Lily's eyes would dart to the window, to the forest beyond, and Claire couldn't help but follow her gaze. The pines were quiet, but their shadows felt heavy, as if something lingered just out of sight. One afternoon, Claire found Lily drawing again, her crayons moving slowly. The picture was different this time, a sunny field, but in the corner, a faint shadow, tall and thin, its edges blurred. Claire's heart skipped. "What's this, Lily?" she asked, keeping her voice calm. Lily frowned, her small brow furrowing. "I don't know. It just came out." She pushed the drawing away, reaching for a new sheet, but Claire kept it, tucking it into Ethan's sketchbook. She didn't want to believe the Watcher was still here, but the shadow in Lily's drawing was too familiar. Claire decided to visit Margaret Hale again, needing answers. She drove to the old woman's ivy-covered house, the sketchbook and lilies, drawing in her bag. Margaret welcomed her, her sharp eyes softening with pity. "You're still carrying it," she said, gesturing to the sketchbook. Claire nodded, showing her the new drawing and Lily's shadowed field. "Is he really gone?" she asked, her voice trembling. Margaret sighed, her hands folding in her lap. "The Watcher's old, Claire. You broke his cycle, but he's not destroyed. He'll sleep now. Maybe for another 30 years, but he'll wake again. Always for twins." Claire's stomach twisted. "Will he come for Lily?" Margaret shook her head. "Not now. The twins took his power when they went together. But he'll watch. Always watch. Keep her strong and he'll have no hold." Claire drove home, Margaret's words echoing. Keep her strong. She thought of Ava and Ethan, their bond unbreakable even in death. She wanted to believe they'd ended the curse, but Lily's drawing gnawed at her. That evening, she sat in the twins' room, the sketchbook open. She flipped to the last page, expecting the gate drawing from the forest, but found something new. A blank page, except for 2 words in Ava's neat handwriting. "We're free." Claire's tears fell, smudging the ink. She closed the book, holding it to her chest, and whispered, "I know you are." Tom found her there, his face soft. "You okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. She showed him the page, and his eyes widened. "How?" he started, but stopped, shaking his head. "They're still here, aren't they?" Claire nodded, smiling through her tears. In their own way, they decided to hold a small ceremony for the oak tree, a way to honor the twins. The next morning, they gathered in the backyard. Claire, Tom, Lily, and Rachel. Lily placed a drawing at the tree's base, showing Ava and Ethan holding hands under a bright sky. "They're watching us," she said, her voice clear. Claire knelt beside her, brushing a curl from her face. "They are, honey, and they're proud." The oak stood tall, its leaves rustling in the breeze. As the sun set, Claire noticed something, a faint glow in the branches, just for a moment, like starlight caught in the leaves. Tom saw it too, his hand finding hers. "Is that them?" he whispered. Claire squeezed his hand. "I think so." That night, Claire journaled again, her words flowing easier. "Ava and Ethan gave everything. To save us," she wrote. "I'll never stop missing them, but I'll live for them, for Lily, for the light they left behind." She closed the notebook, feeling lighter, as if the act of writing had lifted some of the weight. The house was quiet, not the eerie silence of fear, but the gentle hush of peace. She checked on Lily, who slept soundly, her rabbit tucked under, her chin, a smile on her face. Claire stood at the window looking at the oak tree. The forest beyond was still, the pines no longer menacing. She thought of Margaret's warning, the possibility of the Watcher's return. But for now, it was gone. Ava and Ethan had seen to that. She whispered, "Thank you," and the breeze answered, soft and warm, carrying the scent of wildflowers. The weeks that followed were a slow rebuilding. Lily laughed more, her drawings bright with color. Tom took up woodworking, carving a small birdhouse for the oak tree, a gift for Lily. Claire returned to the library, finding comfort in the routine of books and quiet. The town, too, began to heal, the whispers of curses fading into the background. But Claire never forgot the forest, the gate, or the twin sacrifice. She kept Ethan's sketchbook on her nightstand, not as a reminder of fear, but of love. One evening, as Claire tucked Lily into bed, the girl looked up, her eyes serious. "Will they always be with us?" she asked. Claire smiled, brushing her hair back. "Always, honey. They're part of us, like the tree, like the wind." Lily nodded content and closed her eyes. Claire turned out the light, the glow of the oak tree faint through the window, a beacon in the dark. The Harper house, once a place of whispers and shadows, had become a home again by the spring of 2025. 5 months had passed since the night. In the pine forest, where Ava and Ethan, glowing with a quiet courage, stepped into the dark void to defeat the Watcher. The air in Mill Creek, Oregon felt lighter now, the fog that once clung to the town giving way to clear skies and the soft warmth of April. The pine forest beyond the backyard, where the twisted trees had formed the gate, stood quiet, its menace gone. The wildflowers, purple for Ava, green for Ethan, still bloomed in the clearing, a silent testament to the twins' sacrifice. Claire Harper stood in the garden, her eyes on the oak tree they'd planted for her children, its young branches reaching toward the sky. The stone at its base, carved with "For Ava and Ethan," gleamed in the morning light. Claire's grief was a constant companion, a dull ache that flared at unexpected moments, when she passed the twins' room, still untouched, or found one of Ava's books tucked under a couch cushion. But it was softer now, woven with gratitude. Ava and Ethan had saved them, saved Lily, by breaking the Watcher's cycle. Their love, their bond, had been stronger than the darkness. Claire carried that truth like a shield, holding it close when the pain threatened to overwhelm her. She no longer rushed through life, no longer buried herself in work at the library. She listened more, hugged longer, and smiled when Lily laughed, a sound that filled the house with light. Tom had changed, too. The gruff park ranger, once distant and skeptical, was softer now, his edges smoothed by loss and love. He'd taken a permanent desk job at the National Forest Office, trading long patrols for evenings at home. He carved wooden toys for Lily, fixed the porch swing, and held Claire's hand when the memories hit hard. The scar on his forehead, from the night something struck him in the garage, was barely visible, but it reminded him of the Watcher's reality, a truth he no longer denied. "I never believed in things like that," he'd said one night, his voice low as they sat by the oak tree. "But I believe in them now, in what they did for us." Claire had squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes. "Me too." Lily, now 8, was the heart of their healing. She lived with Claire and Tom most days, as Rachel navigated a new job in Portland and needed the support. Lily's laughter echoed through the house, her crayons and drawings scattered across the kitchen table. Her nightmares had faded, replaced by dreams of Ava and Ethan in bright fields, smiling. She spoke of them often, not with sadness but with warmth, as if they were just out of sight. "They're watching us," she'd say, her blue eyes bright, and Claire would nod, feeling the truth of it. The oak tree, which Lily watered every morning, was her connection to them, a living bridge between this world and whatever lay beyond. Claire had kept Ethan's sketchbook, not hidden away but on her nightstand, a reminder of her children's courage. She no longer feared its pages, though she rarely opened it. The last message in Ava's handwriting, "We're free," had brought her peace, a sign that the twins were no longer bound by the Watcher's hunger. But she hadn't forgotten Margaret Hale's warning. "He'll sleep now, maybe for another 30 years, but he'll wake again." The thought lingered, especially on quiet nights when the forest seemed too still. Claire had vowed to keep Lily strong, to protect her from whatever might come. One sunny afternoon, Lily sat in the garden, her sketch pad open, crayons rolling in the grass. Claire joined her, the oak tree casting dappled shade over them. Lily's drawing showed a familiar scene, a field of wildflowers, Ava and Ethan standing hand in hand, their faces glowing. But in the corner, a faint shadow lingered, its edges soft but unmistakable. Claire's heart skipped, a flicker of fear returning. "What's this, honey?" she asked, pointing to the shadow. Lily tilted her head, her brow furrowing. "I don't know. It's not always there." She flipped to a new page, starting a fresh drawing, but Claire's eyes lingered on the shadow. It was too much like the Watcher, the tall, faceless figure that had haunted Ethan's sketches. She tucked the drawing into the sketchbook, telling herself it was just a child's imagination, but doubt gnawed at her. She remembered Lily's earlier drawings, the ones that mirrored Ethan's, and the night she'd woken screaming, certain the Watcher was under her bed. That evening, Claire sat at the kitchen table, her journal open. She wrote about the day, about Lily's laughter and Tom's quiet smiles, but also about the shadow in the drawing. I want to believe it's over, she wrote, her pen steady. Ava and Ethan gave everything to stop him. But what if he's still out there, waiting? I won't let him take Lily. I'll keep her strong, like Margaret said. Writing grounded her, a way to process the fear and hold on to hope. She closed the journal, feeling lighter, and glanced at the oak tree through the window. Its leaves caught the moonlight shimmering faintly, and for a moment she felt the twins' presence warm and close. Tom joined her, carrying 2 mugs of tea. Lily's asleep, he said, sitting across from her. She left a new drawing on her nightstand. He handed it to Claire, and her breath caught. It showed the oak tree, its branches glowing, Ava and Ethan standing beneath it, their hands raised as if waving. No shadows, no darkness, just light. She said they're happy, Tom added, his voice soft. Claire smiled, tears welling up. They are. The next day, Claire took Lily to the library, where she worked part-time now, balancing her hours with time at home. Lily loved the children's section, curling up with picture books while Claire sorted returns. As she shelved a book on local history, Claire paused, remembering Ava's research into Jacob Miller's disappearance. She pulled the 1987 article from the archives, rereading it. Jacob's grandmother, Margaret Hale, had spoken of the Watcher in the Pines, a legend dismissed by the town. Claire hadn't visited Margaret since their last talk, but her warning echoed. He'll watch, always watch. On impulse, she called Margaret, needing reassurance. Margaret's voice was frail but sharp over the phone. You're still worried, she said, not a question. Claire admitted. Lily drew a shadow. It looked like him. Margaret was silent for a moment, then said, The Watcher's gone for now, Claire. The twins took his power. But shadows linger where pain has been. Keep her close. Keep her brave. That's all you can do. Claire thanked her, hanging up with a mix of relief and unease. Margaret's words were a reminder that the past wasn't fully buried, but also a call to move forward. Back home, Claire found Lily in the garden, watering the oak tree. It's growing fast, Lily said, her watering can sloshing. Claire knelt beside her, noticing how the tree's roots had already spread, anchoring it to the earth. It's strong, like you, she said, ruffling Lily's hair. Lily grinned, then paused, looking at the forest. They're out there, aren't they? Ava and Ethan? Claire followed her gaze, the pines tall and quiet. Yeah, honey, they're watching over us. That night, Claire dreamed of the clearing, the wildflowers blooming where the gate had been. Ava and Ethan stood there, glowing, their laughter like a breeze through the pines. We're okay, Mom, Ava said, her voice clear. Ethan nodded, his eyes no longer black but warm, like they'd been before the Watcher came. Claire woke with tears on her cheeks, but she felt lighter, as if the dream had been a gift. She wrote it in her journal, the words flowing. They're free, but they're still here. I feel them in the wind, in the tree, in Lily's smile. They saved us, and I'll live for them. The weeks turned to months, and the Harper house became a place of warmth. Lily's drawings filled the walls, fields, trees, Ava and Ethan smiling. She spoke of them like friends, not ghosts, telling stories of their adventures in the forest. They used to race me to the big rock, she said one day, giggling. Claire listened, her heart full, and realized Lily wasn't just healing, she was keeping the twins alive in her own way. Tom, too, found ways to honor them. He hung the birdhouse he'd carved in the oak tree, a small wooden home painted purple and green. Lily clapped when he showed her, insisting Ava and Ethan would love it. It's for the birds they liked, she said, pointing to the sparrows that flocked to the garden. Tom smiled, a rare full smile, and Claire felt a surge of love for him, for the family they were rebuilding. One afternoon, as summer approached, Claire and Lily sat in the garden, the oak tree's leaves rustling above them. Lily was drawing, her crayons bright against the paper. The picture showed the Harper house, the oak tree glowing, Ava and Ethan standing in the yard, their hands linked with Lily's. They're proud of us, Lily said, looking up. Claire knelt beside her, her voice soft. How do you know? Honey? Lily smiled, her eyes on the tree. The wind told me. A breeze swept through the garden, warm and gentle, and the oak's leaves shimmered, catching the sunlight like tiny stars. Claire's breath caught, her heart swelling. For a moment, the world felt alive with light, as if Ava and Ethan were there, laughing, running, free. She hugged Lily, tears falling, and whispered, I know they are. The forest remained quiet, its pines standing tall, no gates or fog to darken them. But sometimes at dusk, Claire heard faint laughter, like two children playing in the distance. She never told Tom or Lily, keeping it as her secret, her connection to the twins. One evening, she sat by the oak tree, the sky streaked with pink and gold. She closed her eyes, feeling the breeze, and whispered, I love you. The wind answered, soft and warm, carrying the scent of wildflowers. Claire's journal filled with these moments, a record of love and loss. Some bonds are too strong for death, she wrote one night. Ava and Ethan are gone, but they're not lost. They're in the tree, the wind, the light. They're in us. She closed the notebook, her heart steady, and looked at the oak tree through the window. Its leaves glowed faintly, just enough to make her believe. Lily, now thriving, started school again, her backpack filled with new crayons. She'd pause sometimes, staring at the forest, and whisper, Thank you, Ava. Thank you, Ethan. Claire never stopped her, knowing they were still watching. Tom, too, found peace, his hugs longer, his laughter easier. He told Claire one night, as they sat by the tree, I feel them, you know, like they're still here. She nodded, her hand in his. They are. The pain of losing Ava and Ethan would never fully fade, but it was no longer a weight that crushed them. It was a reminder of their courage, their love, their sacrifice. The Watcher was gone, its hunger defeated by the twins' bond. But Claire knew it might return one day, as Margaret had warned. If it did, they'd be ready, stronger now, bound by the light the twins had left behind. One final evening, as the sun set over Mill Creek, Claire, Tom, and Lily sat in the garden. The oak tree towering above them, Lily placed a new drawing at its base. Ava and Ethan in a field, the oak tree glowing behind them. No shadows, only light. They're home, she said, her voice clear. Claire smiled, tears in her eyes, and hugged her. They always were. The breeze moved gently through the pines, carrying a sound like laughter, soft and free. Some might call it imagination, a story born of grief, but Claire knew the truth. Some love is too bright to fade, some bonds too strong to break. Ava and Ethan were forever watching, their light woven into the fabric of their family, their town, their home.